Alright, welcome back everyone. If y'all just came from the first episode, which is what to bring to a chess tournament, that hopefully you are at least prepared with that aspect now and are able to at least be there at the tournament and not get kicked out immediately. But the next thing that you have to know is some basic tournament rules, customary things to do, etiquette, stuff like that. So let's say you signed up for your tournament. Generally, there's two ways you could sign up. You could always go online. Generally, they'll have some information there and even some savings if you do it earlier rather than later, just because they could better plan for the tournament that way. Or you could do it in person, and they'll generally, I'll stop saying generally so much, but they do in person sign ups like an hour or two before the first rounds begin. What they have to do is they have to put all the names into a database with the ratings, and then a computer is going to make all the pairings for the different rounds that follow. So if you run late, it's kind of like with an airplane, right? They're not going to stop the airplane for you. The airplane will take off, so make sure that you are not late for a tournament either. Best case, if you still want to make the tournament, but you got there too late, whether it be traffic or ill preparedness on your end or whatever it may be, they might give you what's called a bye, which is that you get a certain amount of points. There are different kind of buys. There are like full point buys, which is like equivalent to a win. There are half point buys, and there are 0 point buys. So I doubt they'd give you a full point buy if you're late, because then you'd just be pretty much troubling the tournament hall directors and getting like an advantage right out the gate for doing so. So that probably would not occur. Half point buys are pretty common. If you ask ahead of time, if something comes up or if you don't think you're going to be able to make it to a certain round on time, you can ask for a buy. And what happens is that when you have tournament sign-ups, you don't always have equal amount of people. So say you have a certain section, U1500 for example, which means everyone under 1500 rating can play in that section. Let's say there are 17 people that signed up for that section, and there are 5 rounds. That means that one person in each round is not going to have an opponent. So that means that one person can have a bye every round, pretty much. And they'll mostly give those people half point buys. So you can ask for like a buy in advance, but they don't normally give full point buys just because there are people who would cheat, and like in the later rounds they would ask for a full point buy when they're like in the lead and they just want to secure that they have like 6 wins out of 6 wins, so they won't do that. Sometimes they'll even like stop people from getting buys at that point, like in the final few rounds. But just make sure that you let the directors know, if you need to leave or anything, or won't be able to attend the full round beforehand. But let's get into actual play. So they'll post the rounds normally like 15 minutes before it's supposed to start. So if you have a 12 o'clock start time that they tell you around 11:45, try to get to the hall, and then they're going to give you the rounds and pairings. And the pairings will tell you who you're facing. It'll tell you what board you're on, and it'll tell you like the usual stuff like ratings, scores so far, whether opponents won or lost. It'll tell you what color you play. It'll tell you pretty much everything. So get there like 15 minutes beforehand. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll do it like half an hour or an hour beforehand, and they'll do it like online. That's just because you could have hundreds of people at a tournament, and they're not going to have hundreds of people gawking at a single sheet of paper talking about who they're playing. So they'll do both online and printing, typically. But once you get your pairing, go ahead and sit down as soon as you can. Get prepared, if there's water at the venue, then maybe get yourself a cup of water. Make sure you get your notating book out, write your name, write your opponent's name. Make sure that if you are black and there are no, boards provided, make sure that you set up your chessboard. Make sure that you set up your clock if you're a black as well. And then the other privilege that black has is that you can choose which side of the board you can put your clock on. And the reason why that's important is because in time scrambles, not so much during regular play, but in time scrambles, it's much easier to use your dominant hand to move the piece and hit the clock simultaneously. Whereas if you're reaching across the board to hit the clock every time in a time scramble, it's going to get to you eventually. So in longer formats, you don't generally get to time scrambles, but they like giving every little bit of an advantage to black that they can to make it fair, without actually, changing anything on the board, like giving him an extra pawn or taking away your opponent's bishop or anything crazy like that. But yeah, so let's say you're now at the table. You know who you're playing, you got your board out, you got a drink, you're comfortable, you're waiting for the tournament director to officially announce the start of the round. If you have any people that are there, like watching with you or hanging out with you, make sure they leave like 5 minutes before the round is going to start. You obviously can't have spectators while playing because of like cheating concerns. Same train of thought, you're not allowed to have any electronics due to cheating concerns. And this could be completely up to the tournament director, but at a minimum, generally cell phones need to be off and not just away, but like away in the way that they're like in a bag. Like you can't even have them on your person. Like if you have a pocket, you can't have it in there. If you have a purse, you can do that, but then when you use the restroom, you can't bring your purse with you type thing. So what I do is I normally just put it right under my seat, and then I put like my sweatshirt or something on top of it. You could also put it in like your chest bag. There are a couple of ways you could do it. But some directors will be even harsher than that. Some will not let you have like Apple Watches. Some will not let you have like iPods. If they just see anything that seems electronic and they're concerned that it could have been converted or could be used as a cheating mechanism, then that won't do. And it's good to kind of know this now for two reasons. One is obviously so you know ahead of time not to bring in that kind of stuff, and that if anyone's trying to reach you during that time period, it's not like a movie where you could see, oh, someone's trying to call me, excuse me, and you can't go answer it, because you will be disqualified for that. So just off, away, and you don't have it for several hours. If you're a music listener while you play chess, I know a lot of online people, they like listening to music when they play. You cannot have a device on you, obviously, and that includes like MP3 players or whatever, or just like CD players. I know those don't exist anymore, but the same idea applies. So you have to get used to playing without the aid of music. So if that kind of gets you calm and in a rhythm or whatever and ready to play, try in preparation for a tournament to play without music some games and just see if that does affect you or not. And if it does, then you probably would want to work on that if you plan on playing some competitive chess over the board. Okay, so now you have everything pretty much, and you're ready to start the game. Your opponent's here. Tournament director said you could start. Obviously, shake hands with your opponent. Start the clock. As black, again, your responsibility is to hit the start button so that the time starts on white side. And with tournaments, everything is touch move, and there's no talking. So if you touch a piece, your own piece, you have to move it if legal. If you touch your opponent's piece, you have to take it if legal. And again, the tournament directors are very strict on this kind of stuff. Does kind of devolve into a he said, she said type thing. So if it occurs once and you like argue your way out of it or whatever, you might get away with it, but they're going to keep more eyes on your particular board going forward. Saying like check or checkmate or stuff like that, completely okay. Just make sure you don't scream it or anything like that. No conversations with other people, of course, normal. If you need to clear anything up with your opponent or just need to let them anything know, I've had some people where they just like make a move and then just say like, I'm going to use the restroom or something, just to let me know. And cool. You don't need to say anything. You could just go. Your own time is ticking pretty much when you do those things, so you're not being rude to your opponent if you need to get water or use the restroom or whatever. But yeah, you could also do something called adjusting pieces, which is that you don't intend to move the piece, but let's just say that you have, I'm going to use this as an example. Say this is a piece and this is your square, and it's like this. That'd probably annoy you if it wasn't in the center, right? And that happens sometimes. You make a move and the piece is kind of off to the side or it's kind of encroaching into another square. And you don't think about that for online chess because it just automatically puts the piece in the middle. Make sure that if you want to fix that piece, that you say adjust and then move the piece. because there could be some stupid stuff that occurs where you just like move a piece to adjust it or whatever, and your opponent believes that you want to move that piece, and now he's going to have you on the hook for touch move, and the TD director will have you on the hook for touch move as well. So very stupid, but very important. Just make sure you say adjust or like fix or something indicating that you're just moving the position of the piece, but you don't plan on moving the piece itself for your move. Of course, remember to hit your clock after every move. For online chess, it just does that for you when you make your move. In person, it does not. And you will find some people who use everything to try to get an advantage. So they might, just not tell you that your clock is on for half an hour, and then you finally notice and hit it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's dirty. Do whatever you can to win, but people will do that to you. And I've never lost a game by doing that, but I've lost like 15 minutes and got into a bit of a time situation because I was dumb and forgot to hit the clock. One more thing, I think. No, I think two more things to note about tournament etiquette. One would be that if you are in a game where you either need to A, clear your head, or B, you made your move and you've done some thinking, and now you don't have any more thinking to do during this move, you're just waiting on your opponent to move, you can walk around and look at other boards. That's not considered cheating or anything because they're all different games that are going on. But it's really just a good way to stretch your legs, get some blood flowing, clear your head if you're like stressed out from the game you're playing or whatever. You could literally just walk all around the playing hall, go look at like the low 200 rated players, see what they're doing. Go look at like the 2200 or whatever rated players and see what they're doing. You could go to whatever game you want. If your friend's playing with you, then you can get up, and if he's in the same hall as you, you could go look at his game. As long as you don't say anything, completely okay. You're just losing your own time if he makes a move and hits the clock. But again, in the span of like a 5-hour game, which they could get up to, then 5 minutes here is not going to matter too much. But the very last thing that I can think of is when you finish a game, just make sure you put the pieces back. If you're using like a tournament board, don't make the TDs do it for you. Make sure you put all the pieces on their correct squares. Excuse me. And then make sure that you, if it's like black's board or pieces, then help black put it away. Or if it's yours, then obviously you want to put your own stuff away. You're not going to leave it there for someone to steal or take home with them. And then what you do is you mark your score. So those same pairing sheets that I was talking about at the beginning, where it shows who you're playing, those are the same sheets that after your game, normally they're right outside the playing hall, like on the wall. You go outside and you mark a 1 for the winner, indicating 1 point that you're going to get from that match, and you put a 0 next to the loser's score. And either person can do this. You don't necessarily have to have won the game or lost the game. I always just do a rule of thumb. I go there either way, and if I'm the first one there, I'll do it. If I'm the second person there, then I'll just verify that they wrote on the right person. Sometimes they'll do like one above by accident and like indicate a different game. There are some people who would, try cheating and just putting a win under their own name when they lost. So look out for that. Not common, but possible. Then after that, you're officially done with your game. Went without any problems. All that's left to do is leave the hall, and then you could take out your phone again and all that stuff. There's normally going to be someone who's like sitting or posted, like a security guard or something, who's just going to like ask you, like, are you completed with your game or whatever? And you tell him yes or no, and then depending on that, he'll say, all right, go ahead and look at your phone or whatever, and they'll give you permission to kind of leave or however you want to do it. But hopefully that gives you some more of an idea just how like a tournament runs. That video went a little longer than I thought it would, and it covered more than just the etiquette, but kind of just what to expect, how to behave, just be a good person. Obviously, your first few tournaments, you may do something that people might think is funny or weird, but no problems whatsoever. Just make sure that you do things with legality. If you're a new player, they're not always going to be super strict either. If you do something, they might just remind you, but do your best, because the higher you climb, then people will be stricter with that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's all for that video. Next video, I'll go over how to actually do the chess notation. So, good habit to do. I know on chess.com what they do is they sometimes put the notation after the games are completed off to the right. And I'm not sure if most people know how to read that. I'm sure you could break it down. But it's kind of like multiple choice versus open-ended. When you're in a tournament and there's just blank sheets, you have to know what to write down in the squares. So we'll go over that next video. Thank you.